liberty, and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Beagle,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Present.
Councilmember Behrman,
Present.
Councilmember Gotcha, Councilmember Grenlin Fox, Councilmember O'Day,
Here.
Councilmember Sharp.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Very good. Changes or additions to the agenda as presented tonight. Assistant City Manager Benson.
I have none, sir.
All right, we'll see. City Manager does. We'll come back when he gets here. Any from the dais? All right, seeing none. First item of business tonight is the public hearing. Before I open the public hearing, I'm going to read the rules for the public hearing. Persons desiring to address the council shall state their name and address. Individual persons shall allow 5 minutes to address the council. Shall be no questioning by the audience persons addressing the council. However, the council members may question persons addressing the council, and no person shall be allowed to address the council more than once. And with that, I'll open up the public hearing and turn it over to Assistant City Manager Benson. Before we start that, City Manager, do you have any changes or additions to the agenda?
Sorry for being tardiness, I do not.
Very good. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'm going to come up to the podium just
No.
to give a quick,
Please do.
quick overview. All right. Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. In relationship to the public hearing for the proposed sale of 1593 Chanticleer, I just wanted to give a brief kind of overview of what it is that we're talking about, and then obviously members of the public will have the opportunity to state their feelings about this. So this particular property, I have brought it up on the screens here, is at the eastern side of Wixom at our border with Commerce Township on Loon Lake Road. It is a 1.3 acre parcel that formerly used to be a well house. In the early 2000s, we abandoned that well house as we had moved over to the Great Lakes Water Authority water system, so therefore we had no more need for it as a well house. Since then, the city has tried on multiple occasions to sell this property via requests for proposals for various reasons, and I couldn't speak to all of those reasons over the course of time. Those processes were unsuccessful. However, in October, we received an unsolicited offer to consider selling this property for the development of what we believe will be 2 single-family homes. City Council authorized us to negotiate about that, and City Administration has come to a purchase agreement that is included for your consideration under new business tonight, which also requires the public hearing per the city's ordinances related to the sale of city-owned property. It has been designated as economic development property by City Council, and the process for selling economic development property is included in your agenda packet. Pursuant to City Council's deliberations on this back in late October, City Management was directed to work with the prospective purchaser to limit to only 2 single-family homes. The site could have theoretically, we never really confirmed, but could have theoretically fit 3. The prospective purchaser was in agreement with that, and over the course of our conversations, we came to the attached kind of what I'll call it a sketch plan of what this would look like and some of the considerations in play here. So as you can see, 2 lots that would meet the R3 zoning standards in terms of width and size, and I would say similar conformance. They're a little bit larger, but similar sizes to the adjacent properties. It is important to note that this property is not included in the Highgate on the Lake subdivision plat, and I did include a copy of that plat in your agenda packets as well. Not sure why that was done that way at that time, but this property was deeded to the city in 1969. So the proposal in front of you tonight and through our negotiations with the purchaser would be for the city to subdivide the property ahead of the sale. So what that means is that we would break off the southernmost portion that's shaded to remain as Loon Lake Road right-of-way. We've essentially been using it as that, but had never had the need to formally dedicate it because we owned it. Then we would also subdivide the 2 parcels, and then those are what would be transferred for the sale. We would also retain a water main easement on the southern parcel. This is a part of our existing water system. And then this stub that's in the circled red, that's what led to the old well house, and the purchaser would be required to essentially, remove with or deal with that when they get to the point of looking to submit plans to build houses. As a part of these conversations, we have not received any specific plans from the developer of what kind of homes would be built. Our understanding is that they would be submissions or projects similar to what they have built in other places, and essentially would be held to the same ordinance standards that any single-family home development would be. The final thing I will mention is that we have had kind of proactive conversations with the adjacent Highgate on the Lake subdivision. Obviously, we are aware that there are common elements that are, owned and paid for via HOA dues that, there have been concerns about whether these properties would have access to that. So while I can't say that we have firmly worked out exactly what mechanism would be in play for that, we do believe through our conversations with the HOA and their attorney that an agreement can be come to, and by the prospective purchaser has been involved in those conversations too. So if the purchase agreement were to be signed tonight, City Council would have the opportunity, or City Administration would then work through the due diligence phase with the purchaser. They have their own kind of due diligence points that they have the right to go through before this closes. We would need to do the engineering, survey, and splitting, and then work out anything with the HOA prior to closing. With that in mind, I'll return to my seat. If there's any questions or obviously that come through the public hearing, I'm happy to try and answer them.
Very good. All right, before I allow the public to come up for questions, I received a email, and I'd like to read it into the record. Hello, it is our understanding that the city has come to an agreement to sell the vacant lot at the above address, 1593 Chanticleer. We are homeowners in the Highgate and the Lake neighborhood where this lot resides. Our requests to the council include the following: keep the lot limited to 2 homes only, restrict the construction of the new homes to be consistent with the current landscape of our subdivision, modest single-family homes, allow the new homes to be part of the Highgate on the Lake subdivision and part of our HOA. This will allow the new owners access to our beach and to be part of our community where we, the residents, take pride in the programs that we offer to the current residents. This includes neighborhood picnics, holiday activities for the neighborhood children, and shared responsibility for neighborhood cleanup/beautification projects and decision. Thank you, and that's from Angela and Joseph Bryan, 1316 Kenneport Circle in Wixom. All right, this time I'll open up to the audience if they want to come up and speak. All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and move on to business. We've got one set of minutes to approve tonight, and that's from the regular City Council meeting of January 14th, 2025. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Support.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the regular City Council meeting of January 14th, 2025. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Correspondence, we have none tonight. City managers' reports, the departmental reports. Do we have any questions for Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you. I noted in the economic development report, there was a comment about the city having received 2 formal proposals for the Renton area back in October. I know we haven't seen any of those come before us. Have there been any revised plans shown to the city since the initial conversations?
Yes, for both proposals, we've seen kind of multiple iterations. At this current point, from an administrative perspective, we haven't felt comfortable bringing either of those to City Council based on both structure. There are some kind of pieces related to how they are proposing to structure the deals, or I guess alternatively, we'd like to know more about what kind of structure they would like to do. And we have not been able to, essentially our benchmark has been for people to submit plans that at the bare minimum meet ordinance standards from a use and kind of composition perspective. To this point, I guess I don't want to say any developers necessarily by name, but they've been more geared towards closer to pure multifamily. development projects, and per, you know, the conversations we had had about those, that hasn't been the intent, so we're trying to guide them towards a direction of, you know, being in compliance with the ordinances and, you know, being ready to kind of present to you all. So that's where they both stand. We're still in active kind of conversations. I'd like to think that we'll have something worked out to bring, you know, late winter, early spring, but I couldn't commit to that at this point.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilmember Garland Fox?
Thank you. I have a question regarding the F&D operations report. Hello.
Hi.
So as I was reading this, I thought I saw that there's new regulations that are coming down the pike regarding the PFOA and the PFAS,
Yes,
as far as the limits.
the local, or yes, the limits are changing with EPA. We are still within the limits from what I understand and what I see for effluent guidelines.
Okay, that was my
We're well,
question.
yeah, we're well below those on the detections right now. In the future, it may change again, and, yeah, I'm not sure on the next round whether we'll be able to make those limits, but currently, right now, we are.
So is there a plan in place, given, I know it's hard to say if we don't know what those limits are going to be?
Right.
But is there a plan in place to make sure, at least how to address, to get those limits
There,
under control?
there are other ways to, to eliminate it. Right now, we've been successful with our industrial pretreatment program that FMV is implementing to control PFAS coming in. There are a number of areas domestically that also come in, and yeah, those are more difficult to treat as far as pretreatment because they come from homes. Our domestic range is right around four parts per trillion right now, is from what I understand. But yes, we will be working on that. We do also have legacy solids at the plant that have been retained for some time now. We're still working on different processes to get those out. These in my opinion, are still unfunded mandates, and we have the capacity to retain them on site. So we're going to keep them as long as it's feasible, and then you know, we're in the process of developing plans to remove those as well.
And pursue funding.
And pursue
For the
funding.
removal.
And that's the trick on that one, so just stay tuned, I guess.
Thank you, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Yes,
Mr. Sigma.
yeah,
Yeah, I was looking at the DPW report and noticed that we're starting to get overtime hours for snow removal.
Yep.
I was approached by several residents over the last week and a half about the Michigan Airline Trail. Is that intended to be plowed by the city of Wixom?
if plowed, it would be intended to be plowed by Wixom. Now, we were talking about the DDA as a whole, and we're working on a plan to plow that, I guess, more consistently in the future. One thing that we're hesitant on the airline trail is limited amount of folks to get this work done and continue to keep the roads, you know, free of ice, snow and ice. So we're trying to balance that out, but we hadn't planned on plowing most of that trail at this time.
So even with our additional resource for the DDA?
So if it's in the DDA, we're looking through that, so we would do it through that portion as well, yeah.
And again, the
But
rumblings are coming from bike riders and the runners in the
Correct.
city, and it is amazing how many people are still trying to
They're
run
still
it
in the
with
use,
all the ice.
yeah, yep.
All right, well, let's keep an eye on that,
Of course.
and, yeah, if there's an opportunity to get it clean when we have a clean snowfall. I know it's tough when the frozen.
It is tough, and we are restricted on salt, you know, as far as those areas, we are not advised, if you will, to put salt on those because of the discharges to stormwater runoff and whatnot. And the safety concerns on roads, that's a different story. We limit that as well, but I think we've got that dialed in, but we do not have the machinery to put salt down on like the airline trail for that matters. But yeah, we're looking into additional ways to clear those areas.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know the contract states that in the DDA, the sidewalks have to be cleared within 72 hours, so I'm sure that'll be part of the airline trail thing, will be the 72 hours, and that's what they're working to improve the 72 hours to get it to a shorter time distance than that.
The trouble with that is it keeps snowing, so,
Yep.
we gotta get back out on the roads, so our 72
Yeah.
hours gets pushed, but
Yep.
we are making that a priority
Yep.
in the BCA.
Yep, I know, we've been talking about it, so it'll get done. Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Sigma, I noticed in the engineering report, the city generator, our favorite piece of very expensive equipment, is,
Yes.
I think, up and running as of last Friday. Did that happen?
As of last Friday, they ran it. They ran a load bank test on it for 4 hours, and they tested it to automatically come on when when we lose power. So if we lose power on a Tuesday night, we will be able to have power here at City Hall through the generator.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Wait, Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Oh,
Are you
okay.
referring to just for Tim or any other questions?
Oh, you got any other questions?
Yes, I did.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. This is for Mr. Benson. I see the ordinance enforcement monthly report. Is this kind of your vision for the reporting going forward?
Yeah, this was, I
The reason
mentioned
I'm asking is
briefly.
we got 2 more months of reports before budget planning, and I want to kind of get a feel, are we getting a value for our budget dollars that we're
Yeah.
spending on the code enforcement side?
Yeah, I mean, I would say yes. So within your current packet is I'll say a more expanded version, as we had previously talked about. I'm not married to that being the final version. We're kind of workshopping it a little bit. There's a variety of ways to report on code enforcement activities, but we're trying to be, I'll say, sensitive to, this information goes in public packets, and so if we get too specific, it becomes too obvious. So my kind of direction to Maureen was, kind of big picture, what are the things that you're looking at? But the other kind of key piece of this is that comparatively speaking, November through February are gonna be our slowest months anyways. So from just a statistical standpoint, you'll see more starting in March. And then from a bullet point perspective, you may also see that. A lot of her time, and this has historically been the case, there's a lot of, just one-off things, right? And we haven't been inclined to necessarily write down like, received a call or went out and inspected about, I don't want to give a specific example, but you get what I'm saying. So, but if there are things that you all would like to see or kind of more details or like, hey, what are we doing in this area? I'd encourage you to reach out to me individually. Happy to, have a conversation and see, how we can provide that detail.
I'm mainly looking at it as roles and responsibilities. Like I see the signs. Is it work that Ms. Underhill, that's correct, sees the signs and then writes it up for DPW, whoever it may be, to go get rid of them, say the high ones on the poles? Is that kind of her, in that specific case?
Yeah.
Is that, because now that is in the code enforcement section rather than the DPW section, it's in the code enforcement section.
She picks up a lot of them herself,
Okay.
but that
All
is
right,
also
all right.
not unique. Even Safe Built used to do that,
Sure.
just not as proactively.
Okay, I'm trying to understand, the budget dollars, is her actual, maybe we can have that discussion a little further during budget session, but I do like there's a little more definition there around the call, so thank you.
You good? Councilmember, you good?
I'm good, thank you.
We're good. Anybody else? All right. Moving on to the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular agenda at the end of unfinished or new business. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
All right, I got a motion and a support to approve the consent agenda as presented tonight. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. It moves us to the first call to the public, and I'll read those rules. The rules to the call to the public are as follows. The public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence, and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves, their place of residence, and shall state their reason for addressing the council, and all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do we have anybody first call to the public tonight? I will close call to the public. Move on to unfinished business. We have one item of unfinished business tonight. It's a recommendation to enact an amendatory ordinance to the City of Wixom Code or Ordinances, Title 17, Environment, to add Chapter 17.10, Illicit Discharge Elimination Program, to regulate non-stormwater discharge.
Support.
Very good. Mr. Sickma?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is a change in our stormwater requirements that we're trying to enhance our stormwater, I guess, enforcement. And right now, the way the ordinances are read, any kind of stormwater discharge that's not stormwater is called an illicit condition. And we're trying to eliminate or change that so we can have exemptions to that. One of those exemptions we talked about last council meeting was fire. There's a fire that occurs in a yard. They put the fire out with water, and the debris from the fire actually gets into, along with the water, goes into a sediment basin and then into the streams. That's now exempt, or would be exempt out of this particular ordinance. And there's other ones like washing your car and in your front yard. That would be an exempt discharge, potential discharge to the stormwaters. And this gives us a little bit of enforcement if there's other illicit conditions, like discharging hazardous materials or something into the stormwater. That would actually be a problem, and we would have enforcement capabilities for that. This is the second reading of it, and with your decision tonight, we would enact this. This was requested by Eagle as a matter or condition of our NPDES permit for the city for stormwater. With that, I'm open to questions.
Councilmember Garland Fox?
Tim, do we have educational materials out on the website as far as that people know what can go down the storm drain and what shouldn't?
Yeah, so we've been members of the Huron River Watershed and the Alliance with the Rouge Communities. Those are the two discharge watersheds that Wixom does belong to or discharge to. And there are several different things that are included in that, and the do's and don'ts on that. And with this ordinance, we can prepare additional information, just letting them know about these kind of things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? All right, seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to enact an amendatory ordinance to the City of Wixom Code of Ordinances, Title 17, Environment, to add Chapter 17.10, Illicit Discharge Elimination Program, to regulate non-stormwater discharge. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Tim. All right, that concludes unfinished business, so now we'll move on to new business. New business item number 1 is a recommendation to approve the purchase agreement with Pine Cove Investments, LLC, for the sale of city-owned property at 1593 Chanticleer Circle, property identification number 17-28-3 329-027 with a purchase price of $150,000 in accordance with Chapter 3, Section 3.16.050 of the City Code, sale of economic development property. Do I have a motion?
Move.
Support. Very good. Assistant City Manager Benson.
Thank you, Mayor. Given the earlier presentation during the public hearing, I won't walk through the background of this. Suffice to say, in your agenda packet, the 5 steps related to the sale of economic development property are included. Tonight, you would be going through steps 3, 4, 5, reviewing the recommended sales contract as reported during a regular city meeting. You have held the public hearing, that's step 4, and then number 5, it's up for your consideration of this purchase agreement. The prospective purchaser is here tonight, so if you have any questions, you could invite him up to potentially answer those. In addition, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about this.
I think it'll probably be good if we have him come up and introduce himself, just so he's on the record, so he's here.
Good evening. My name is Haitham Obeid from Pine Cove Investments and Pine Cove Building. I'm the prospective purchaser. Me and my father have been developing and building in Wixom since the late 90s. And we have a keen interest in continuing to build in this community because, we know the community very well and we, pride ourselves on building great homes for people. So we're open to any questions that you may have.
Do we have any questions? Deputy Mayor Resnick.
I noticed in one of the memos it said that you use good faith efforts to try to get into the association, the homeowners association, so that
Yeah.
those folks can enjoy those.
Yeah, that's our intent. If this goes through, then I'll negotiate with them to add these 2 lots to that association.
And my second question is to Mr. Benson. Is there any special thing that we have to do in terms of that right-of-way in Blue Lake Road? It's already owned by us. Is that just a foregone?
So what will eventually happen, there's a couple things depending on how this plays out. One, we'll probably bring back, I'd assume it'd be under consent agenda, an item for you all to formally dedicate that parcel as a right-of-way. So we'll split it off first, then bring it to you to dedicate. And then just in relationship to your first question, obviously we've been working with them on the prospective easement or, working with the HOA. We very well may coordinate that kind of on the front side too. And if that's the case, we may bring those easements to you to authorize, because it'll still be our property at that time. Obviously with the, consent and working with the prospective purchaser, but just to add that point, those might be additional items related to this that you may see.
And the GIS databases will be updated
Absolutely, yeah.
thereafter. Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. Regarding the email that Mayor read into the record from the Bryans on Kenneport Circle, they comment on looking, I know the number of homes, that's going to be down the road. Probably 2, it's hard to imagine 3, but we'll discuss that in the future. What's your thoughts on their question about wanting to have modest single-family homes? How does that sit with you? What does that mean to you so that those homes fit within the Highgate subdivision?
I mean, I have existing product that would fit within those 2 lots that I think would be just fine. I don't know too much about that community, to be honest, but I've driven through there one time. So I have, there would probably be 2-story colonial homes. So I have a certain product that would fit on either of those lots, probably 3 that come to mind right off the bat.
They're not going to, I don't know exactly how big the lots are, but probably 12,000 square feet or something like that. I can't remember.
These will both be either around half an acre apiece, so they'll actually be larger than
Oh,
the
okay.
average R3 lot.
So we just completed, I just finished Maple Glen, which is off of Maple Road, west of Wixom. It's 15 units, so we built that out. So it'd be similar to that kind of product.
These like 3,000 square feet kind of size?
I have a 3,200-foot house, but I think
I mean,
for
they're
that
gonna
community.
they're gonna be pretty
Small.
large relative to the surrounding houses, but I don't know how else you'd afford to develop it at $75,000 a lot, so.
Our intent would be to, put it on the multi-list and on our website and try to attract people who would build their, a home of their desire versus
Okay.
just
Custom.
specking a home. Something that.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a little more interesting than cookie cutter out there. I just wanted to say I support we've had some discussions on council about, do we need to develop every square foot of land that we have in the city? This kind of begs for houses, though. It's surrounded by houses. It's, an acre lot. So I support the sale when it comes to a vote. Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Gatchel.
Thank you. The lot closest to Loon Lake, it would be your intent to have both driveway accesses off of Chanticleer, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. That was kind of question number one. I also caught the good faith effort. I'm not sure if that can be reworded. I mean, being real estate, no, that it's a pretty loosey-goosey term that really doesn't mean anything. So I would almost prefer to see something to the effect that it will only be the failure of the HOA to make those lots be included in the association. In essence, it won't be a developer or a future homeowner that does something to cause it not to be. If the HOA wants it, that's our goal. If they can't follow through for whatever reason, then it just is what it is.
Okay, I mean, that would, I'd have to think about, at this point, we may, if we wanted to change the language of the purchase agreement, we'd probably have to go back and kind of rewrite that up and make sure that reconciles. I will say, and I've kind of mentioned it a couple points here, between the time that we kind of came to a consensus on a purchase agreement and today's meeting, we have, I'd say, made some progress with the homeowners association. So I do think the city, we will actually be in the position to address that comment prior to transferring the two lots. That's kind of the way that we're going about this. Now, that's not codified in this purchase agreement. We figured that out in the time between these two things. You could, and I'm doing this off the cuff, without the consent of the purchaser, but you could theoretically make your approval of this conditional on city administration doing that, or the HOA saying in writing that they won't include them. Again, that gets a little complicated. That's the reason it's written the way that it is, because ultimately it's not a decision that either the purchaser or the seller really control. It is up to that private organization and kind of figuring out what they're comfortable with. In the legal memo attached to this, we kind of walk through some of the kind of underlying challenges that relate to an HOA and a platted subdivision.
Yep.
So it's a little more complicated, which is why we used, I'll say, less committal language, because there's a lot of variables that either the seller or the buyer can't control.
If we're going to maintain ownership long enough to get through that, I would prefer that maybe we did make it conditioned upon that if the rest of council agrees and we vote on that. It's just a matter of like practical purpose too. There will be people, if those aren't built into the HOA, there will be people that live in those houses 30 years from now who try to go use the beach. And it's a stupid rule to not have them be a part of it. So I would like it to be conditioned upon that. We'll see what everyone else thinks. Now the comment about your current product and having a few homes that might fit the site over there. Those neighborhood homes are usually around like a little less than 2,000 up to about 2,300 square feet on average. So being bigger lot, probably be a larger house. Do you see though, if someone comes to you, are you willing to build a custom home, or will they have to select one of your current products? And there might be some adjustments they can make, but we're not going to see a glass modern house in the neighborhood.
Right. No, it would be, I'd be open to building a custom home, but, I mean, it wouldn't benefit anybody to have something that's not gonna fit within the character of the community. So,
Yeah.
And I understand that, and I understand also the association would not like to see that too. in the city. And nobody, it doesn't benefit anyone. So we'd make sure that aesthetically, it would be pleasing
Okay,
to all the residents there.
okay.
When I say custom, I don't mean like changing the exterior to make it look more modern or farmhouse or any of those new trendy elevation styles. I'm just talking about like reworking the interior to make it something that's desirable to them.
You're willing to adjust your envelope, basically, but you're not willing to just work from somebody else's plans that they had their architect draw up that's wildly different.
Right.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilmember Behrman?
First and foremost, subdivision that you just finished up looks wonderful. And I think it really,
Appreciate it.
I was concerned on how that was going to mesh with the existing community, and I think it looks really well. That being said, I agree with the idea that if these two lots could be part of the HOA, it makes sense for the HOA and it makes sense for the future owners of those two lots. That being said, I don't know how much of an expense I think the city should be putting into that. I think it's more of an issue for the future homeowner and the HOA to work together to work that out. If we can do it really economically and feasibly and cheap, so be it. But if not, I don't know why we're getting involved. I don't even know why we had a city attorney write a 2-page memo. I don't feel like that's something we should have done. Our desire was to sell this property. We have a buyer that's done great product in the city. Let's sell it and stop wasting money on it. That's my view.
Councilmember Garland Fox?
I also would like to see these two lots be part of the homeowners association. But the main reason is, just as Councilmember Member Gatchell stated, is down the road, you're gonna have these people potentially that wanna be part of that, or at least wanna use the facilities, and if they're not members of that association, it's just gonna cause a problem. I don't know how much we, the city, should be involved, but it would be nice if there was a way that that could just be written in somewhere. I don't know how that would work. I'll leave it up to.
And that is the path that we're actively working down.
Great. Thank you.
The city's not looking to absorb a lot of costs on this, but the city's just trying to make sure that we ensure as positive an outcome as possible, including things like Councilmember Gottschall and yourselves concerns about making them, having them become part of the HOA. That's something that I think the developer would like to see. I think that's something that the city wants to see. But again, as Assistant City Manager Benson mentioned, it's beyond our control to some extent. So including something in terms of the language, that would become a potentially absorbing additional cost kind of circumstance that
And I don't want that.
yeah. So we're just trying to do some due diligence up front to make that more of a likely outcome. And that's all that we're trying to do. And we're keeping our costs pretty low to address Councilmember Behrman's concerns as well. We're not looking to spend a lot of money on this. We don't want to make it our problem, but we also want to ensure there's a good outcome in the end as much as possible. And that's what we're shooting for.
Great, thank you.
You said you're gonna subdivide to two lots, correct? Are you gonna sell the lots, then the house, or is it all gonna be,
It would be one transaction.
okay?
Yeah.
Because I was just gonna say, just to make it easy on the transaction, when you purchase the lot and you agree to build the building, part of the contract is you're part of the HOA. That's it.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I think that'd probably be the easiest thing to do.
we're not objecting to that.
Very good.
Mayor, one more thing, if I can just add something. I should
Sure.
mention. Councilmember Sharp made mention of something that I want to address, the feedback that we had from a couple of residents of the HOA. They're indicating they were looking to see no more than 2 homes, but Councilmember Sharp raised the possibility that it would still be looked at as far as 3 homes. There's 0 probability of us allowing 3 homes on that. That's something that the developer and us are in agreement on. It's 2 homes. So I want to make that clear so that there's not any concern about that from the perspective of the people that put in that piece of feedback. And we're going to shoot to make it as harmonious with the existing development as possible. It's not going to be exact, but I think the developer wants to make sure that it fits with the community as well. We've had a good experience with Mr. Obeid in lots of circumstances, so we're pleased that he's interested in doing this development in the city, and I think it's going to work out well. And I think in the end, it'll work out well for everybody.
Do we know what the HOA fees are in this? 225, so they're gonna build a, what, $300,000 house, and we're gonna argue about 220, that doesn't make any sense, so, well, what I'm just, whatever it is, we're gonna argue about
I wish I could build
$225?
200,000.
No, no. Go ahead, Councilmember Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager Brown, though, I understand the 2 lots, and we looked at it in council, and it doesn't seem to be a way to do 3. But just from a pure zoning perspective, we could fit 3 homes on
Yeah,
it.
so just to clarify that a little bit, there was also discussion about having the driveways on Chanticleer. I think the only way you're gonna have 3 is if you had one on Moon Lake, which nobody wanted to see happen.
For sure.
And that's why we're gonna have slightly larger lot sizes as well, because you're taking a piece of property that could be turned into 3 that are.
This
only
isn't the
30.
final site plan approval. This is
No, this
just
is just-
selling the property.
This is the
So I
property. It's
understand
still gotta go
Weird
through-
things, we all might be gone in a year, and somebody else might be building.
Fair enough.
No, but to add, no, but to further Mr. Brown's point, what the way this deal is structured is we will convey 2 lots. We will subdivide it before transferring it to Mr. Obeid, because we need to get the right of way off. So he'll get 2 parcels, and then you, per our zoning, you couldn't split them any smaller.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
That was my intent from the get-go.
Yeah,
I
we
didn't
have
want
no
3.
We
I'd
don't-
rather have
not
bigger,
be here
2 bigger
in
lots.
6 months. It might be somebody else.
No, I-
That's my point. You know, we can talk.
No. You-
I plan on
You've
taking
got
care of it in
11
6
months, okay? Unless we change the charter again.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Benson.
Any other questions? All right. I've got a recommendation to approve the purchase agreement with Pine Cove Investments LLC for the sale of city-owned property at 1593 Chanticleer Circle, property identification number 17-28-329-027, with a purchase price of $150,000 in accordance with Chapter 3, Section 3.16.050 of the City Code, sale of economic development property. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
New business number 2 is a consideration of proposed community signage designs and location plan and authorization of the bid process. Do I have a motion?
Support.
Very good. Mr. Benson?
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. Just give me 1 second. We do have a presentation for you tonight. We also have Erica Deutsch from Guide Studios here to kind of facilitate this conversation. But to start this off, I will give her a little bit of an introduction. You all are familiar with this project. The last time that you saw signs were the 30% design and, plans back in May of 2024. Since then, we had re-engaged with Guide Studio to basically take those 30% plans, really refine them in terms of the sizes, dimensions, locations, specifications in general, for both the city and the DDA. And tonight is essentially our presentation of that. So, you know, in the big picture, she'll walk through these tonight. We're happy to answer any questions you may have. As it relates to an outcome of this, there are really 2 directions that we can go. One, we do recognize that you all haven't seen these in a while, and we are open to any comments, questions, concerns. You know, hey, if there needs to be some modifications, now is the time to tell us that. We can go back to the drawing board and bring these back at a later date. Or alternatively, if you tell us, hey, these generally look good, maybe there's a few tweaks or something we need to do, but generally you're good with this, what the next steps would be with kind of your consensus would then be we'd prepare the bidding package, we'd go get that information together, and then bring it back to you to discuss, hey, here's what the bids are, here's what the costs are, here's what we're recommending. So we're not asking for any authorizations for any spending related to any signs. This is purely just making sure that we have your consensus on, from a design perspective. With that in mind, I'll invite Erica up, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Hi, everybody. Erica Deutsch from Guide Studio. We have been working with the city for a little over a year now, right? I think, yeah. We did your new brand for your city and your downtown, and we moved into signage design. Just to give you an overview of where we came from. So we started this process as responding to a request for proposal. We did a discussion with the core client team, hearing their issues and concerns. Then we had a discovery session with a steering committee. So you guys put together a steering committee for us, and that is our engagement piece. We toured the city and the downtown. Like I said, we did our brand development. We did a wayfinding assessment, so that's our strategy document. So everything that you're gonna see here tonight, there is a process for how we do these things. We don't just go throwing signs out in cities. We've been doing it, we're a 25-year-old company. Actually, we're over 25 years old. We've been doing this a very long time. We've worked with hundreds of municipalities. So this is something that we know and understand, and we live and breathe by our strategy. So we're gonna show some location plans, and I know the context is a little scary when you look at it. So I just want you guys to remember that it does come from a place of strategy. Then we also did conceptual design. We had a selection and feedback by the steering committee. We did the schematic design, and that was the end deliverable for our first process or project. And then, like Drew said, we got rehired to finish this out, to give you a bid package so that you could send it out to fabricators to get bids back. And then, obviously, we did programming. Programming is the location plans and messages for all of those signs. So our guiding principles, this is something that is unique to you guys. Any municipality we go into, we have, this is the strategy. This is how we do it. So first and foremost, we wanted to drive traffic downtown. That was your top priority. This isn't coming from us, this is coming from the steering committee. That's what we heard. Most destinations are accessed using some of the main roads, so direction to particular places will be limited to the closest main road intersection. So what that means is we're not throwing signs all over. So if there's something, far in the east of town, we're not directing to it all the way in the west side of town. So you're more directing to it at a 1 or 2 turn spot. Placemaking will be used to elevate the downtown experience. So that means, not necessarily there are always signs, so different cues for those types of things. Special impact moments are recommended. So I think in this package, I think we left in that to show you guys. And then we heard that pedestrian and the bike signage is important to you guys because you have trails and things like that. And then also what we hear from a lot of cities is a lot of your residents don't know city-owned facilities. So we want to make sure that all of your city-owned facilities and your parks, they all look consistent and have the feel that they are owned by the city. And then we also heard that, there's a historic piece to the city, and we want to be able to spread that. That's not actually in this first phase, but we did create a sign for the historical pieces. So this is in here as just a reminder of what we have to follow. So while we're designers, when we love to design beautiful signs, we do have to follow federal guidelines. So these are the kind of design criteria that we have to follow when we're designing signs. So as what I talked about, that strategy, as you can see here, we look at the different destinations which are on the right, and we talk about the top destinations that you have. And then we create paths to all of these destinations, and then we start overlaying them so that you can see the different circles, and you can kind of see in the middle where they're getting darker. That's where we want to put signs. We want to put signs in key decision points. So we don't want to litter the city with tons of signs. We want to put them in key decision points. So if you look at this and you see the different circles, kind of remember that as we start going through these location plans. So here's where the vehicular wayfinding will be, and I know this is really small, and I know you have it in your packet, but there's different sign types that go with that. And each of these little tags are different sign types. And so that's kind of where you'll see them. I know it may look like they're big, but they're not in context for sure.
Just one additional note alongside that, you will notice, and I apologize to everyone in the audience, later on we can zoom in on these if council has any, we want to talk through those. So just know we can zoom in, but the other thing I want to say is you'll notice that each type has a number and a letter. Those do correspond specifically to the sign designs that you're gonna see later. So, when you see a dart or a bright red A1 primary gateway, in the sign design, you'll see there's an A1, so you can actually kind of correlate those. And then we did include the spreadsheet that kind of non-visually shows what goes where, what those numbers are. It was potentially a little bit confusing, so I just wanted to make sure I tried to clarify that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll go through this and then we can go back through different pages and zoom in on different things if you would like. So then we also have pedestrian, and it's hard to see on here because they're pink tags, but they're in high areas of pedestrian concentration, right? Like parks and gathering spaces and things like that. So we're not gonna put pedestrian signs on, a 35-mile-an-hour roadway where people are not really walking. And then these are the city facilities and then the park identification signs. Down in the right corner, it looks like there are a ton of signs. That is this campus that we are on right now. There are not a ton of signs. What it is we're marking everything here. So there's vinyl on glass on a bunch of the locations. And then there's also the dimensional letters for like police and city hall and things like that. So we have to account for all of that. So it looks like there's tons of signs here, but they're not. There's some on the building. And then we were asked to pull out some of the sign types into a phase 2 portion. So it sounds like maybe we're doing a phase 1 and a phase 2 implementation of this. So that's what these signs here are. So then we get right into the sign designs. So up at the top, you can see that's that logo that we designed. It's going to be dimensional letters. We're paying homage to the historic sense with the masonry and the bricks that will be matching, things in the environment. But then also going into the modern with this mesh backer that, and when we zoom in later, I can show you, it has small X's through it. So that's a custom mesh backer. So we also have a vertical gateway as well. So we have a horizontal solution and a vertical solution because both of them will not fit in all contexts. So we want to make sure that we can account for the different locations that these will be in. And same idea here. We've pulled out the X on the bottom. That's a recessed X on the material. These are aluminum structures. And then again with the masonry base. Then there's also what we like to refer to jurisdictional boundaries. So these might appear in more residential areas. So we couldn't have masonry bases in those areas typically. So this is a more economical solution coming in from different cities, just knowing that they've come into Wixom now. So the larger gateways are for areas that can account for that, and then these are in more residential, more smaller spaces. Then we move into vehicular directionals. So we have a couple different sizes for this. So this is the 4-inch text. So this is on a slower roadway, and we only can fit the 2 different panel messages on there. And again, this goes back to earlier when I said things will only be like a 1 to 2 turn out. So this is, a 1 to 2 turn out from Gunnar Metalla Park and downtown. And again, we've carried that mesh through. So that is mesh. It is gray here. And then also another vehicular directional with the 5-inch text. This is for 35 miles an hour and plus. So again, these have to be a little bit bigger because the messages are bigger and the roadway speed is faster. So it goes to a 2-pole, again, the gray mesh backer. And then vehicular trailblazer, just a smaller sign pointing with 1 message on this. So as you get closer to the park, this would be the trailblazer for that. Again, these are only going to have certain destinations on them, as you saw earlier. And then again, on the larger ones on the faster roadways. Then we get into downtown, or we're talking about downtown. So we swapped out the Wixom for the downtown logo on these. And so these are the Trailblazers to downtown. So again, remember that #1 goal was to get people to go downtown. So these will be out in the city trying to get people into downtown. Here is a retrofit for the Village Center sign. So taking what is out there now and kind of retrofitting with this new design with the downtown logo and then that blue mesh backer. Here the mesh backer is solid because of the construction that's behind there and whatever that we're gonna hide a little bit. So you can still see the X's, but it's just solid where a lot of the other is see-through. And then once you get into downtown, the poles are now going to be the darker navy to match more of the black poles that you have in downtown. So that's kind of the difference there. And again, using the downtown logo. And downtown directionals, we can fit the 3 messages. The speeds are slower here in downtown, so we can fit those messages on there.
And you'll note that they're modular, so that you can, if something needs to be changed in the future, you don't have to reprint the entire panel. If it was a full panel with all 3 locations on it, you just swap out one if you want to change a focus point. Good, good touch.
Yep. And then we have public parking IDs. So we have the regular with the mesh that you can see through, and then we also have an alternate option that if it needs to be mounted to an existing pole, you don't want to see the pole through the back, so it has kind of that more solid backer on that. And then we did a trailhead identification. This is 2-sided, so this would be for the Michigan Airline Trail. And it has the directional and, how do you do? Is this not this? Is it like a Mac? Can I? All right, we will zoom in after. And then the pedestrian kiosk, again, this is double-sided. This is where we would have a map or a directory with businesses, or you can have advertisements here. That's what we call a snap frame. Anything that you have printed would be printed direct to substrate, typically like an acrylic or something like that. So you're not dealing with any paper or anything like that, so you don't have to worry about that. They're really good with weather resistant. Nothing is graffiti resistant, but it definitely can be cleaned off and things like that through these. So these are the pedestrian kiosks that you might find throughout the city in like the parks and things like that. And then these are the downtown ones. So again, you can see we had the gray and now we have the dark blue. And again, same thing, you can do a directory, you can do maps, advertising events and different things like that on these. And actually, these both are the same exact size. So the city and the DDA don't have to worry about sizing things that they're the same, you know, so they could put the same information in if you wanted to do that, or you could have different information. And then this is that interpretive historical marker that we designed with that X on top, and then those panels can be customized. You know, you can do 3 panels, you can do 2 panels. This is still yet to be determined on what those messages are going to be. And then we're moving into facility identification. These are ground signs that are double post and panel with the gray mesh. We have the address on as a separate panel, so that can be, you know, changed out if needed. And then the Wixom badge on top. And then here's where we have the dimensional letters, doing a brushed aluminum, and then the vinyl on the glass. And we have the hours of operation on those as well. And then the retrofit for the digital sign for the Civic Center, bringing in that mesh again and the Wixom logo and just calling it the Civic Center campus. And then this is a larger park identification, very similar to the other ones. Again, that blue mesh, that's see-through, so you know, air can get through and you can see behind a little bit, and then utilizing that badge in these ones. And then a smaller park identification and then the destination, or the Michigan airline underneath on that one. And then here's that photo op sign with the WXM in it. We left that in. This was part of a phase 2. And that's it.
All right, open up for questions. Anybody questions? Councilmember Gacho.
Just gonna let everybody else go first. I know we aren't approving any funds right now, but I think when we had talked originally around budgeting, there was something about it being like $250,000, $300,000, something like that for signs. And then when I was reading through the minutes included in this package for one of the other commissions, maybe it was Parks and Rec, there's a comment that City Council set aside up to 1.2 million over the next 2 years for signs. What are we really expecting bids coming in?
So, and glad you brought that up, and I'm going to give some credit to Erica for actually, we've been working on cost estimates. It will be, we're thinking it will be less than 1.2 for all of these signs. And keep in mind that 1.2 that is budgeted also includes 200,000 from the DDA. So there's a good portion of these signs that they tend to be smaller, but a decent number of them are from the DDA, and they would pay for those. I guess I'll defer to Erica on getting into kind of the specifics, but I will say gateway and monument signs specifically can get expensive. That's why there are so many retrofits included in here, to avoid doing new masonry. So, and actually, just as an additional example, not included in here, but we would probably be looking at a retrofit or something similar to the Civic Center campus sign for the fire department as well. That's a conversation that started later in the process, but sorry, I'm talking a lot.
And we do have that in the package. But yeah, so typical community wayfinding programs are 750 to 1.2 are very typical. You guys are falling at about 900,000. That's with a 15% contingency, and we always include at least a 15% contingency for costs. Obviously, we won't know. These are numbers from a fabricator here in Michigan, but they obviously don't, we haven't fleshed out all of the designs, so you really don't know until the bid package goes out and then they actually bid on it. So there's no super guarantee, but at least it gives you an idea of where you're at.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
With respect to the actual sign designs, there very few signs had like the full height and width dimensions listed, and that was a bit annoying. It didn't even tell us how tall the figurine was next to it. On some of these, looking at the proportionality and the dimensions that are given, like the DPW sign looks to be over 9.5 feet long and taller than however the human figure is next to it. What is the height of that figure supposed to be, or that sign? Because a lot of these, the park signs, the DPW sign, they all seem like excessively tall and wide.
So I did some math earlier. I don't know, Erica, do you have it? Do you have any conversions to actual size? So I did it on the gateway signs, roughly speaking, just using the scale that was provided, and the vertical sign was about 16.5 feet tall and about 4 feet wide. The other version of the gateway sign was about 10 feet tall and about 17 feet wide, just for perspective basis. And that was using, I'm assuming that the guy's about 6 foot tall. So that was using, yeah. And then it's also using the actual measurements. So I started off with an estimate, and I used the actual measurements to come up with those two. I only did it on those two signs.
The other thing, and I'll let Erica speak here in a second, but believe it or not, even our existing signs are bigger than you think they are. So like as an example, we were out doing measurements of the Civic Center campus sign. That's probably close to 10 feet tall. they're, you know, so when you're dealing with things that are intended to be seen by vehicles, they inherently have to be larger. I don't know if you know offhand, Tim, but even the current DPW sign that you guys have out there, it's gotta be 10, 12 feet, right?
At the DPW
Yeah.
or the one at?
The one on the street.
The one on the Charms is 5 by 8.
And then that's posted on top of posts.
Yeah, according, and it's following the guidelines of the city.
So,
The one at DPW is larger, but that's a different sign.
okay.
Yeah, so this sign, it looks like it's probably 12 foot wide by 9 foot at the top of that badge, I would say. There are measurements that are on here that don't measure the entire sign, but measure pieces, parts of the sign.
Yeah, that, to my mind, just seems like wildly excessive in size.
It feels like it until you're in the environment. Yeah, we were just actually out yesterday measuring current signs for a city that we're working with, and the sign was 10 foot wide. Actually, it was 12 foot wide by 9.5 feet tall. The sign currently there that we're replacing, so.
So to the like comment about being in the environment, I think that's part of the issue is like we have this weird feeling that we have to kind of have our hands on everything or manipulate everything, and we can't just let nature be nature. Like we have to put up 81 signs, and that is a lot. Like there's 5 or 6 signs pointing people to downtown just from like Grand River and Wixom Road, which is insane to me. There's 3 signs telling people where the Fin Camp is, which is not like a public area. So like the size, I think, needs to come down a bit. And both for parks and the DPW, those are all on slower mile-per-hour roads. Charms is 30, 35, Wixom or Loon Lake's 30. I don't think we need to get giant signs. So that's with respect to those. The downtown Wixom replacement for the current VCA sign that we have, given the size of that, it almost feels a little disproportional that downtown kind of outweighs the Wixom bit. If there's another way to maybe shrink the downtown, and I know it goes against our logo, not that I care about those very much, but kind of balance that out a little bit, to my mind, would make a little bit more sense. The material also just seems very clashy with the concrete. I know we're trying to keep costs down, but I also don't want it to look kind of not classy. So that is kind of where I think we're at right now with that. And then just overall, as I mentioned, the 81 signs between both phases, I think needs to be scaled back seriously. As much as I could, pulling from the spreadsheet that we're given that kind of tags the different signs that are on maps, that I had to request the ones that we could zoom in because you couldn't read them on the printed copy and whatnot. It seems so excessive. I don't know if anyone else feels like that, but we're putting up a lot of signs pointing people to places that they just know. Like, I think if we all felt like we were, or if we asked ourselves, like, if I'm driving somewhere I don't know where I'm going, am I just wandering down the street hoping there's a sign pointing me in a direction, or have I used my phone or vehicle GPS? Probably we're using GPS, which means the signs aren't going to be super relevant to begin with. So the extent that we're going, or the count of signs that we're putting up and the cost that we think we're going to be incurring to do that, it just seems all wildly overdone to me. And I would almost wish that we could table this and kind of pare down, if anyone else agrees, pare down to what we actually think we need, and then put that out for bid. Because I think this is all, they're too big. We were given this with 2 business days to review it too. So I don't know, like, we haven't had a full discussion about this as council. I know that's kind of the intent for today, but I'm not on board with the design plan for the signs or the location plan at this point.
Yeah. We're not, all we're asking tonight is to review this and give them the approval to go ahead and get us quotes for these signs. We can pare down at a later date when we get the cost back. We may find out that the costs are real high, we might not want to do all those signs. And remember, all these signs too are over 2 phases. So tonight, we're just asking for approval to go ahead and start the process of getting us those figures. And then at our next meetings, we can figure out what signs we want, what signs we don't want, and go from there.
It's still to the, I think, the effect of, even if we go out for bid for all of these, and hopefully we don't put them all up, I have issues with this overall size and design of some of them, that I don't want to see us go out to bid for signs that we want to change later. That's kind of, I guess, backward.
So what about if we get the direction of getting 2 different size, like the signs for the DPW, the entry signs into the city and stuff, like we get a 9x12, can't remember what those signs, but we get a 9x12 quote and we get a 10x6 quote. Just to forget. But yeah, smaller, that's what, you know.
I do think, I'll look for some kind of Erica's thoughts here, but I think it may be helpful for us to, we could go out and measure and actually tell you what our existing signs are. I'm very confident. So just as an example, like that picture that she has on the screen, that's one of the examples that I went out and measured. The VCA sign, the sign face portion, that's 84 inches, that's 7 feet. Just to that point, and then the additional spire, that probably gets you up to about 10 feet. And my question to you is, does that feel excessive when you drive by it in that context? And I apologize, I don't mean to cut you off, but just to continue that thought, the same thing applies with the DPW sign or the Gunnar Metallo sign. In the context of Gunnar Metallo, you're gonna have to raise it 6 feet just to get it over the existing landscaping. And then you're probably gonna need a sign face that's 6 feet to be visible from the street. So I mean, we're happy to go measure those, but I think you will be surprised at the size of them in the context of vehicular travel. Pedestrian-wise, certainly, but it's just very different when we're talking about monument signs that are designed to be seen and identified and actually catch your eye. To your point, why are we doing this? The intent is to catch people's attention, to let them know where they are, and in the context of directional signage, yes, we are trying to point them somewhere. That was one of the initial points from the steering committee was, as it relates to downtown development and our original economic development strategy that led us here, we're trying to drive traffic there. We're trying to drive community recognition. We're trying to let people know that when you are in Wixom, for the people who aren't from here, you'll see it, that you'll recognize it, and that maybe you will get some benefit out of it. So, but we would be happy to, if you guys want to table this, if there are specific points of information that you want or things you want us to do, we can certainly do that. That is the purpose of tonight's meeting. So I would put it at your discretion at that point.
Yeah, I think to a few of your questions, like, I don't think the size of anything that we currently have would have any bearing on my opinion. I think some of it is too large. I think the VCA sign, like, people aren't looking at it. Even though it's right at the end of the triangle that you're driving by, people are headed right away from it. And that's a 5-lane road. Anyway, it's almost to the point, like, those are large rectangular signs almost for the parks right now. Even if we amended that to something that was more vertical than horizontal to be less imposing, then that might be something else that is worth looking at. But I understand we have landscaping to deal with. I think it's shrubs that are maybe 3 feet high at Gunnar Metallo as your example, but it doesn't, like, we're over signing. I don't feel like I got voted up here to spend $900,000 on signs. That doesn't come to mind. I didn't run on that. But it's, I don't know. It's like, obviously, I haven't been a fan of the logo change or that whole process, and this kind of just follows with that. But it is in line with, we already have a lot of signs that we could probably do without, and that's not a part of this plan, is doing without. We're just adding to. And so, like, in front of the VFW, for example, we have a sign for, I think it was two signs for Gilbert Willis in the FinCamp in front of the VFW. So that's gonna be in addition to like the street signs that are there. We're not looking for a way to cohesively mash anything together. We couldn't figure out a way apparently to put a street sign on a sign that also tells people that are driving or walking or riding their bike on the new sidewalk that Gilbert Willis is to your right or left. We have to add in two new signs for some reason. That it's all in addition to what's already out there. We're not pulling out any. I know we're taking down some of the signs that are there. I can tell by your look.
Yeah.
That yes, some of the signs are going to change, but I'm talking in terms of like traffic signs, everything like that. Driving down Loon Lake Road and seeing how many signs you can drive in Commerce Township and you see a speed limit sign every mile. I feel like Loon Lake Road, we have for everyone a speed limit sign every 50 yards, it seems like. We're oversigned, in my opinion. And I don't, then you look, in addition to that, the school district is going to be adding more digital signs in front of Loon Lake Elementary and Wixom Elementary and whatnot. It is all going to be too much, and that's my genuine concern. Too many signs, too much sign pollution, and it's all kind of needless. People are looking at their vehicle GPS or their phone GPS to get to where they're going if they don't know. If they know they're headed to Gilbert Willis Park, they are probably living in the city and already know where they're going, and that's a pretty safe assumption. So it's all like redundant spending for $900,000.
If I can add, make a couple comments relating to this. Number one, the audience isn't somebody who knows where everything is. The audience is people who don't know where things are, where opportunities are. And the second thing I'll say is when we were starting this process, $1 million was the figure that was in my head from the jump. That might seem like a lot of money, but it's the money that you would expect for this kind of a package. And in terms of the sign sizes and things of that nature, I don't purport to be a sign expert. That's why we hired Design Studio to develop the package with the appropriate sizes as far as their 25 plus years of experience represents. And that's not to argue with Councilmember Gottschall on this. I'm just pointing out that that's what was brought to us. We want to move forward with this kind of a program. We hired a consultant to make the recommendations. They've made the recommendations. And if a majority of council is not in agreement with those recommendations, then those recommendations will not be implemented. But if the majority are, then they will be, is bottom line. So that's a few things that I would say about it. The size thing, I understand it, and we've kind of had some discussion of it, that the stuff that's out there is bigger than you think it is, kind of thing. So, the signage sizes are in line with their best practices that they recommend. But if council has a different direction to take on that as a majority, that's fine. And I was going to tease about one thing to Erica. So you're saying there's a chance that we're going to get this for $770,000 then, is that right? If it's the 15% contingency comes into play, right?
Right, yeah, for sure. And as far as the size goes, these are pretty typical, but we definitely can take a look at that. There's definitely cities that we've worked with that they have ordinances that we have to adhere to. So we're working with a county right now, and we have to bring down the size about like a foot. So that's not unheard of, that we can relook at those sizes, for sure. That's not crazy. As far as the size of the program, you guys are actually a pretty small community program. At 80 signs, that's a pretty small footprint for our typical communities. You don't have a ton of parking. You don't have a ton of parks. So most of our sign programs are probably 100 to 125, pretty typical. And so it depends on destinations and facilities and things like that. So you guys actually are considered one of our smaller programs in that respect. to your comment about people using GPS, for sure, we totally understand that. But these are confidence markers. So we're not putting signs in cities for the council people or the residents. We're doing it for the visitors. You want people to visit and patronize your downtown and your parks and your trails and things like that. So that's who we're putting signs up for. We're putting signs up for the people who are not in the know and don't know and who are following a GPS and might just happen to look and say, oh, okay, that sign says Gunnar Metalla that way. I am on the right path. I feel confident that I know where I'm going now because I see that. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Okay. Councilmember Gunnar Fox?
I'm not sure where to begin to answer that. So as far as this measuring the signs that we have currently, that would be helpful for me. I have a hard time visioning what that size would be. I do agree that it might sound big, but once you're driving by, it's probably not as big as you think. But that would be helpful. As far as too many signs, I think you could definitely have too many signs. The one question I have as far as the FinCamp, why isn't that a private? Why would we even have a sign for the FinCamp? Because it's a private.
It was identified as one place that gets a larger amount of visitors. Like it's just a more trafficked location. It's a fair point, and actually that's a great topic for a meeting like this. We put it in because it gets trafficked a lot. We could easily take it off. We had the same conversation about total soccer or total sports actually, and that we felt a little less inclined. FinCamp's a little bit more of like a nonprofit, community organization, but we could take that off easily.
Yeah, my opinion would be to not have either one of those because they're private and let them put their own sign. And the FinCamp does have a sign right now, but as far as, I think the mayor had mentioned, we don't have to decide the number of signs tonight. It might be helpful to table this just so we can get the dimensions of the signs, look at that, see if they are too big, and during that time, maybe we all drive around the city and look at these signs and say, okay, yeah, that's way too big, or that's really not big at all, and then we can compare them to the measurements that you bring back. That's a thought. Thank you.
Councilmember Behrman?
Thank you. Well, I was going to mention the FinCamp as well. I don't have any idea why that would be on there. I don't think that we should be putting private entities on our directional signs. So I would definitely support that being removed.
And we typically don't recommend it either. That was something probably your steering committee wanted.
Understood.
Yep.
I'm in support of really the like as you have the A signs, right? Like the direction, coming into the city signs. Those are the signs that we talked about from the beginning that kind of started all of this, started the rebranding. And I think that those are the signs that really need to be done and needed to be done for years. Right now, when you come into the city, some of our entrances have no signs. Some have old rusted white signs. Some have green rotting wood signs. That's what needs to be updated. With regards to the downtown area, that I defer to the DDA. If this is what the DDA wants to do, I'm completely in support of doing whatever the DDA wants to do downtown to make it consistent to what we're going to do with the entrance. I think the second phase, in my eyes, would be to then go through and update the park signs and the DPW signs to make all of that match. But that's, in my eyes, that doesn't necessarily have to be done overnight. Mm-hmm. And whether or not it's going to be a 7-foot sign or a 9-foot sign, I mean, if they're all going out to bid and we're getting a price per sign, can we not then say, well, we like the price of the 7-foot sign better, so we're going to put that in front of the DPW and everything else? Or is it going to be the DPW sign as a 9-foot sign is what's being bid out? Or are we going to be asking for?
I would say, generally speaking, we're better off having decided on the sign size prior to bidding. There is the ability to modify things. I mean, generally speaking, a lot of the height is going to be related to the poles, like the size of the poles. So those can easily be modified, but I would say we'd be better off figuring it out. ahead of time.
And again, I'm not a sign expert, but I'm going to assume the majority of our cost is gonna go on the A signs and the entrance signs, and maybe the little directional ones that may or may not be overkill are moderately cheap signs.
Yes, yes, for sure. And as far as implementation goes, so what you're getting for your final deliverable is a bid package on all of these. You don't have to bid out all of them. So we work with plenty of cities that do this over 3 to 5 years. So the first phase, we're working with a city right now, they only are doing the park signs as their first phase. We're working with another city that is doing the gateways that you're talking about, and then they're also doing their downtown signs. So how you implement this is completely up to you guys, financially, what you think is something that is a high priority, like the gateways. That is pretty typical of what we see of a lot of our municipalities, because they want people to know when they've arrived to your city. So that is completely open at this point. We are giving you a bid package for every single sign though, so that when you want to, you can bid out any pieces, parts you want.
Understood. Well, I'm definitely in support of us moving forward with the gateways. I don't know how it needs to be phased out. I'll leave that more to Drew. The DDA, I'm fine with that. The only thing that I just personally, I don't like the big WXM like sign back here. I don't know why we need that. I feel like that's just a waste of money. But I assume that would be a DDA expense.
Well, and it's not even,
No.
that is not,
Not
that,
even on the
yeah.
table right now.
It's, I consider that one of those things that it's in the arsenal, so to speak, right?
It's a
15
pretty
years.
big expense in the arsenal.
No, I know, like, no, when I say in the arsenal, I mean, like, we're not bidding that right now. That's not something we're recommending, that's not something we're pursuing, but it's in the design, right? It's in the package, so a council 10 years from now might look at this and say, like, wow, that was kind of a cool idea, maybe we should explore it. It's you know, it's something you have, but no, we're not recommending that at this time.
Okay. I would just, I'm fine moving forward with this tonight. I just do think that when it comes back to us for actually spending the money, we need to have the ability to partition off what we view being more important, per se.
Yeah. We'll
than
decide
spending-
phase 1 and phase 2.
Yeah, or 3 or 4. But I mean, I guess $1 million, I mean, we're just getting a sidewalk for that on Wixom Road. So, I mean, this is a bunch of signs for $1 million. It all works out, right? Just money.
The other thing we can do is, and this shouldn't be all that difficult, I think we already have this, we can also try to kind of correspond this to what are replacements and what are new. Because I think that'll be the other piece, that you'll be surprised at, you know, what the number of existing signs that we're replacing. Just, you know, new gateways will be new gateways. There's a couple new ones, but we have a lot of secondary gateways, and you don't even see them. They're pretty small, but that's something we can certainly work on, and that may make this number feel more palatable. Because again, that 70 number that we're talking about as part of phase 1 includes, I'm not doing the math at the moment, but it's probably something like 25 of which are here on the Civic Center campus. It includes things like the windows, right? So it's the vinyl letters, it's the, you know, replacing the police, it's things that are relatively small. It's parking signs, right? So it's just something that goes on a pole. So number seems big, and it's not nothing, but it's including everything. It's not like, oh, you know, we didn't include that in the 70 number. So, but we can certainly fine tune that. That's easily something we can do.
Councilmember O'Day.
Okay, thank you. And in listening to everyone here, I definitely agree with the some large consistent signage throughout the city to let you know when you're here, right? Because I think that's pretty lagging currently. So for me, that would definitely be phase 1. Let's just identify where we are in the first place. And I do appreciate you saying replacements versus new, because I would imagine, as you indicated, a lot of it is just replacing what's already there and being consistent and being part of the brand. And then I guess just the last thing I was going to ask, though, maybe just to help visualize this number of signs. I know you have the different types of signs on here, the Pathfinder, the entry points. Would there be a way to have some kind of, and I'm not even sure what you would call it, whether it would be interactive or even just something with like overlays, for an idea of how this would look citywide all at once, a little more zoomed in, if you will, or enlarged?
Oh, so do you mean like more renderings of these things in place?
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know if you have that. We included a lot of like the gateway ones in like the schematic package. So we plopped these signs down into like a Google image so you can see for size context and see it in the environment. We don't do it for every single sign. That would take a lot of time. But we definitely have some. I mean, you probably have them. I don't know if you have them.
We can
readily
reconnect on that
available,
and
but-
find, because the other thing is we can make sure if we need to update them to reflect changes since that last point. So yeah, I think we can certainly do a little bit more work on showing you examples, specifically like the facility IDs out in the field. We can work on that.
Yep.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. First of all, size, I have no problem with it because the size of those signs as the monument exists today. So thank you for those. And you would be surprised when the measurements come back of how big they are. I concur with Councilman Behrman that our initial intent was the primary and secondary gateway signs as a phase one. Absolutely. And, I would also include, including the parks, the big park entrance signs with those. And so I have no problem with that. I do also concur with Councilman Gottschall in the total number where there seems to be redundancy, like the vehicular direction plus the Pathfinder at the same physical location, right? It seems like if you're on a bicycle or even walking, you look up on the pole and see it was Gilbert Willis Park, versus being on the trail when you're doing that. So there are redundancies I see there as well, but I think primary focus would be the primary, secondary gateways, and then start looking at the monument signs for the parks and the city buildings, and then take a much closer look at the vehicular directionals and the trailblazers. Now on the vehicular directionals, I believe there's some federal guidelines in terms of size that you have to concur with, including the height of the bottom of the sign.
Yeah.
So I'm perfectly fine with that. You showed that very well in your presentation. Couple questions technically, and I'm fine with going forward with it today, to get the bid package, see what we got, and then start paring it down from there.
Yep.
The primary and secondary, is front lighting envisioned in some way, shape, or form, or some sort of illumination?
No, illumination is not included on that. Just typically, so there will be retroreflective on them, but so typically gateways aren't typically lighted just because that's a huge expense that most municipalities don't want to. Yeah.
In the city, I think some of our facility ones are. I don't know. Actually, I don't think any of our primary gateways, the ones that you can see, I don't think any of those are illuminated.
Front lighting on the one.
The one back in Maple, I think there's some lighting in front of
It
it.
has a solar light.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the conversation, we could certainly, open to, especially if there's solar lights, all right, you could get me on board for that, but just from a cost running
Right.
utilities
Oh, yeah.
perspective. And also from a, we've been trying to be very cognizant of, Planning Commission talks a lot about the sign ordinance and trying to limit light pollution,
Right.
so that
I'm
was.
just thinking about the primary gateways, period, not
Yeah.
anything else.
Just for context, I know you all can't see, but so this is like when we presented our schematic design, this is what we did. We put them into actual locations so you can see size and scale.
Not a rendering per se, but almost like the paper image, if you will,
Yeah.
plopped onto a real life photo, just so you can see its size,
Yep.
perspective, those kind of things.
Yeah.
We have those, as she mentioned.
Yep.
And then my last comment is you had mentioned the cleaning ability. I know you can't make anything completely vandal-proof, but we've seen a few instances in our community now too of I should say vandals.
Yep.
That are out there.
Yep.
This particular material makes it easy. There's solvents that won't ruin them, but clean them.
Yeah, so
backwards and forwards.
we'll work with the fabricator. So anything that's painted gets painted with like an auto grade paint. So anything like your car. And then we'll work with the fabricator to work with DPW on, okay, this is what you can use to clean, this is what you can't use to clean. You know, obviously there's some like abrasive things that would take off finishes and things like that we wouldn't want them using. But yeah, the fabricator would make those recommendations and tell them the materials to use or supplies to use and not use. But yeah. Yeah, so we do our best with that, but nothing is completely vandal-proof, unfortunately.
All right, well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. First question, which you just mentioned about working with Fabricator, is that part of the scope of what we've already agreed to pay Guide Studios for, working with fabricators, or is that another phase?
Nope.
We already, okay.
Yep.
So I basically support this. We don't know anything yet, and we got to get some money behind the numbers assigned. 70, maybe $7 million by the time we're done. I don't know. So, and then we'll probably cut it back. And I don't really have a feel for the size thing. I'm thinking about the one back in Maple. That's about to dry rot apart, you know, and it's overgrown. You know, and what's a new sign, the new you know, the A1 gateway sign gonna look like at that corner? I mean, here we got these majestic oak trees and this huge, in my mind, huge sign going in there, but it might not be much bigger than what's there already. It's just fallen down. I don't know. When we're bidding it out, I assume flexibility will be the word of the day with the companies that are submitting bids. And we might pick one that we really like to work with based on, we want to get them all together in a room and compare apples to apples. And then maybe once we pick one, we can work with them to go in multiple phases. And the last thing about the quantity of signs, 70 is nothing. There are at least 70 at the intersection of Pontiac Trail and Wixom Road for crosswalks and everything else there. We can get rid of 70 at that place as far as I'm concerned. That's all I have. So I support the motion. Thank you.
Very good. Well, all right. And I'm in favor of moving ahead tonight with what's presented before us to get a quote, and let's get started on that. And then once we get the numbers, we can figure out what signs we want, what signs we don't want, what's phase one, what's phase two, et cetera. So, Councilmember Gacho?
I guess, so it was said that we'd be better working out the sizes now, so the intent is to go out for bid with the current sizes that are in
I
our
think,
package.
We'll look at that. We will look at it. We'll revisit it for sure. But like I said, this is pretty typical, but we will relook at the size, yeah.
yeah, I would say absent any specific direction, to Eric's point, I think we will revisit this. You bring up a great point that these drawings could have been more specific. I think that's something that we can identify, and also we can reconcile. I know, you know, early on in the process, we looked at our own ordinance, and I think that's a key metric, at least in my opinion, right? The signs that we put up, if they meet our own ordinance, I think that's something administratively we'd be comfortable to do. So we can make sure to the best degree possible these signs meet our ordinances from a size perspective. And unless, you know, council specifically directs otherwise, you know, I think that's how we would go about the size component. If you guys want to see them again before that, that's, you know, that could be the direction too, but that's.
So like the A1A, the primary gateway horizontal, that again doesn't have full dimensions. Is that what would be replacing like the sign at Chanticleer Circle?
Yes.
What are the dimensions on that?
The primary gateway sign?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when it's about 10 feet wide, and, 17 feet wide and about 10 feet tall. That's counting the masonry aspect of it, not the sign itself. That's the entirety.
Yeah, that's so much larger than what's there. All right, yeah, okay.
Well, do we,
It has
do we
tape
know
measure
that
base,
that's
so keep that in
where
mind,
that's
but
going?
that's what it came out.
Off
I-
of Loon Lake Road, just
Yeah.
Claire Circle.
But I don't know that we worked out
There,
which horizontal or vertical on all of these locations yet.
Try and go through the maps here.
yeah, no, in the version that they're looking at, it's an A1A.
So we're talking A2,
We did an A2 there?
that's
Oh, we
what
did on the
the
primary.
sign says.
Oh, well, if it's an A2, then no, it's not the, I
So
thought that would have been a
What is the height on
primary.
that then?
So this is an A2.
Yeah, that,
What's the total height and width at the,
Looks like about 12, but
Yeah.
that's a guess. 11, 10, 11.
yeah, it's about 11. I actually did the math on that one earlier. I think.
So it'll be
Maybe 3 feet.
taller than what's there, but substantially narrower.
Right. That blue panel is 3.9. And then the gray sticks off
Yeah, it's about 4
a couple inches.
It'd look a lot better than the green sign.
I guess I'm just gonna make a motion to table this to review, and if it fails, but at least we tried.
Support.
All right, I got a motion and a support to table the discussion of consideration of proposed community signage designs and location plans and authorization of the bid process. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Nay.
Councilmember Bierman,
No.
Councilmember Gacho,
Yes.
Councilmember Gremlin Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Day,
No.
Councilmember Sharp,
Nay.
Mayor Beagle.
No.
Motion failed.
All right. So I do now have a motion and a second to approve the consideration of proposed community signage design and location plan and authorization of the bid process. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Councilmember Bierman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gacho,
No.
Councilmember Gremlin Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Day,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, and
Thank-
so just to kind of close this topic, we will, as promised, we've got a series of notes here, so there may be some kind of minor adjustments. We'll cover all of this, by the time that you see this again, and I will also provide updates in my monthly report, just to kind of keep you in the loop of modifications. But yes, from a height and size perspective, some of these things will change, and at a minimum, will be, fleshed out in a way that's clearer for you by the time that you would be looking at, bids. And the same will apply to the location map.
Through the mayor, Mr. Benson, will you get the dimensions of the signs that are out there?
The existing
Is that in
signs?
the Packet?
Yeah, I can work on that and distribute that after the meeting.
So I can.
Might take me a couple days, but yes.
Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. Travel safe.
Thank you.
All right, with that, that concludes the new business portion of tonight's meeting, and it moves us to the second call to the public. I'll read the rules to the call to the public. They are as follows. The public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence, and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council, and all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do we have anybody for the second call to the public tonight? Step up to the podium, state your name and address, and speak whatever's on your mind.
My name is William Dillon, 1562 Waters Edge Court. I originally came to, just out of interest, for the sale of the property on Chanticleer, but I was reminded during the discussion of the stormwater runoff, and I just have a question. When the snow comes, the plows come through and drop salt, I think, and then that runs into the stormwater and it runs into Twin Sun Lake. I don't know if the catch basins catch that salt and it's cleaned out eventually, or if that salt runs into
It does run through, yeah.
So it runs, and it does run into the lake. I don't, it sounded like for safety reasons, for streets, they are exempt from certain regulations regarding that. There's not much can be done, I suspect, other than,
We're trying to limit it as much as possible, just for the environment, but with the caveat that we want to keep our streets safe.
yeah, I understand. Any thought of sand as an alternative?
There is, the trouble with sand is it doesn't melt it doesn't melt, so it ends up being ice. more
Okay.
often than not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I can talk to him.
Anybody else for the second call to the public? Seeing none, I'll close the second call to the public and move on. City manager's comment. City Manager Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I had a few things on the city manager update that I'll go over quickly. The website update that occurred yesterday is still sort of being finalized. There's some issues that are being identified, but we have our new logos on the website for the most part. So if you haven't seen the website recently, I'd encourage you to take a look at it and take a look at our new updated website with our new logos, with our new branding, our new fonts, and so on and so forth. So that has mostly been accomplished, but there's still some cleanup to be done. So keep that in mind. And then if you do find something that's amiss, feel free to contact my office and let us know what you find, because we're obviously going through an effort to find those kind of things and get those things addressed that need to be fixed. That's the first item. Secondly, don't be too impressed by this, but I've been made the vice chair of the Resource Recovery and Recycling Authority for Southwest Oakland County. I think I was one of 2 administrative officials there, and we needed somebody to step up to it, so I agreed to step up to it. So congratulations to me, so to speak. Looking forward to that. There's actually some key stuff for us to work on. In 2025, there's our Material Recovery Facility, or our MRF, as the director likes to refer to it, continuing to monitor the performance of the waste hauler that's been contracted by the communities that are part of RASOC, which is Priority Waste, and then just a focus on keeping the costs affordable and keeping the service effective and of highest quality possible, and keep the pricing competitive. So that's the stuff we'll be looking to do in 2025. The joint meeting question that was on there, we were looking at 2 different dates. It's been settled on, I believe. February 4th is the date that was selected for that. That's going to be for a joint meeting of a variety of boards within the city, which is something that we like to do to keep people on the same page. There'll be more information coming out about that in the coming days, but it's going to take place on February 4th. One other thing that I wanted to make specific mention of is our own Assistant City Manager, Director of Economic Development, Drew Benson, was named the Young Professional of the Year by the Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce. Had the opportunity, along with members of council that were interested, to attend the awards event, the Black and White Ball that was held in Commerce Township. And great event. Congratulations to Drew for a well-deserved honor. He's done a lot of work, a lot of fantastic work for this community. He's done a lot of work with the Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'm not surprised that he was recognized for that work. Congratulations to him. And it was a pleasure to be there to help celebrate that and enjoy that honor that he received with him. The next thing is the work anniversaries. We've got several ranging from 1 to 10 years, and that's all that I was going to specifically mention. If there's anything I can do to address any questions that come up, let me know. Otherwise, that's my report for now.
Assistant City Manager, or refer you as Young Professional, Benson. Do you have any comments tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. Just 2 things. First off, I wanted to thank every member of council for the discussion on the signs tonight. I've got a lot of great notes and things that we hadn't even necessarily thought of. So I do think that we accomplished, a lot to help us get where we're going on that. The other thing I will mention, you've seen it in my monthly report for forever, as long as I've been here. It is official as of January 23rd. We are a redevelopment ready community certified. The state has recognized us. At your second meeting in February is when we'll do a little presentation, so there'll be something associated with that, but.
Also cake.
Oh, are we doing cake? Okay, I gotta figure that out. But just wanted to note that the state, the MEDC will also be bringing the redevelopment services team out the day after their presentation to you all, and we're gonna be kind of touring our priority redevelopment sites and learning more about some of those new resources that we have access to, such as the Match on Main grant through the MEDC, things like that. So we're hitting the ground running with those new resources, and looking forward to it, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Very good. Council comments. Councilmember O'Day.
None from me.
All right, Councilmember Garland Fox.
Oh, I'd like to, again, congratulate Mr. Benson on being, receiving that award for Young Professional. It was a very nice event and well-deserved, so thank you for everything you do. And then thank you to all those employees celebrating work anniversaries. That's all I have. Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I don't know if anybody knows, we got a new easement on Wixom Road, 1800, that was on the consent agenda. I look forward to that path. One of these days, we're going to take down that sign that says pathway ends, and there won't be any sign there. So that's good progress. Hats off to Drew Benson for his award, well-deserved. You just keep delivering here for council, so you're doing a fabulous job. Thank you. And I wanted to thank members of the public for being here tonight. It's awesome to see a pretty good crowd. We take your voice seriously, and I hope you recognize the amount of work council puts into all these issues. Nothing's taken lightly. We spend a lot of time on this packet was 180 pages long. I'm not saying everybody reads every single word, but we understand the issues before they come up here. But thank you for your support and being out here tonight. That's it. Thank you.
Good. Councilmember Gacho.
Thank you. I also wanted to congratulate Drew on your award. When I read Steve's vice chair election, I kind of imagined that situation where everyone else takes a step back and you're the only one left standing there.
You had it right.
So you were one of two. You had a 50-50 chance and you still lost. So the draft proposal that you gave me, I would say I'm fine with.
Okay.
So that's my feedback on that. And I think that is everything I have. Thank you.
Very good. Good to hear that. Councilmember Behrman.
Congratulations, Drew. And I'll piggyback on Councilmember Sharp's comments about the public coming tonight. We appreciate when the public comes, but more importantly, I assume most of you came for the first business item, and the fact that you stayed through the entire meeting is awfully impressive. We appreciate, though, whenever anyone comes, and in the future, if you ever want to come up and tell us what you think, we'd love to hear it.
Very good. Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to congratulate Drew. I had the pleasure of attending, and it was great to see him up there. And he, by the way, did the best in terms of his acceptance speech, because he did it from the heart, didn't read off of cue cards. And we had another Wixom resident, John Ellsworth, also received an award. So, yeah, Wixom was well represented there. Also, thank you to the public for coming out. That's great. And the RRC, that's great news. It opens the door for a lot more opportunities for grants, which is something that we were striving for, I know, for many years now, and thank you for driving that over the goal line.
I too want to thank the public for being here tonight. It's always fun, and we joke that these go out live and you can watch it on YouTube, and we always say, to the 4 people watching tonight, but we can triple that now, so that's really good. And then I want to thank all the employees celebrating work anniversaries with us today. We appreciate everything, and congratulations to Drew. The Lakes area finally knows what we've been having for you for a long time, and we're very pleased to have you. We're pleased with what you've done, and it's about time you got an award for it, because we all know it up here, but now everybody knows it. So, and with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you.